Welcome back to the channel where we focus on being safe on our motorcycles, which generally means being comfortable and proficient at slow speed operations. Today I wanted to address the concept of stopping smoothly and under control. When you're at speed on the road, the most efficient and effective way of bringing your motorcycle to a stop, let's say 30 miles an hour, and trying to pull it down to a stop, is slowly and gradually pulling on your front brake. Not grabbing it, but pulling it. Getting the feel for not locking up, etc. But using your front brake to come to a stop. However, at the slower speeds, it becomes a little more difficult to use that front brake in a controlled and comfortable way, because there's so much stopping power in that front brake. Probably the focus of most experienced riders, the most experienced slow speed riders, the ones who really know how to operate their motorcycle at slow speeds. Generally, we use the rear brake for controlling our speed, which means at that 10 to 15 miles an hour and below, you're really controlling your speed and then slowly bringing it to a stop. Now, situations all dictate differently. I mean, there are times when you will need to come to a very quick, for safety reasons, come to a very quick stop. It may not be as smooth, and that's just the way it is sometimes. You may need to use your front brake to stop very, very quickly. But when it comes to comfort, especially of your rider, your passenger, the rear brake is the best way to control that stop. And I'll show you the difference here. First thing I'll show you is the stop with the front brake, which you'll see is a little bit, in order to make that more comfortable, you really have to work on control of that front brake. It is tough because it's so strong. And then I'll show you the stop with the rear brake. So front brake first. And this is not emergency stopping. I'm not talking about that. Emergency stopping is very different. So here you go. I'm coming up to the stop, and the stop sign, stop right there at the line. That was the front brake only. I actually have my foot touching the rear brake because I'm so used to using the rear brake only. But that was the front brake. And keep in mind, I was completely straight. My handlebars were. Otherwise, I probably would have dropped the bike. So here we go again. And actually, let's pretend I have a passenger on the back, and the reason I'm using the front brake is for stability of the feet, or rather, I can put both my feet down. Now, I didn't just use the front brake there, only the front brake to stop. Now I stopped at using only the rear brake, again, at less than 15 miles an hour. I'm not talking about more than that, because you don't want to use the rear brake there. I'm coming up to the stop sign, lifting the throttle a little bit, using my rear brake, nice and controlled. There you go. That's the stop using the rear brake. And no passenger, obviously, but as you can tell, I'm very stable. There's a little bit of breeze out here, but I'm still quite stable. I'll come from the other direction. Kind of interesting. I'm still getting used to the bike right now. The throttle control. Here we go, coming up to the stop. Nice and controlled right there. Using the front brake, I'll do that next here. Coming up to the stop. It's very interesting. I find myself tossed up here. I find myself thinking, using that front brake, something that some people who are very experienced in slow speed riding will say, use your front brake, it's fine. If you have somebody on a rider or a passenger with you, because you need some stability. And it's interesting to hear that, because I can see where they're coming from. When you come to that stop, you want to have both feet down. Rather, you feel like you want to have both feet down for the stability purposes. I guess from my experience, from what I've seen, when you have that rear passenger, put your both feet down once you've come to a complete stop. And actually, I'll come towards the camera so you can see what I'm talking about with the 1 foot down and only using the rear brake. So right now, only using the rear brake, coming up to a controlled, smooth stop. And you can actually hear that I had my engine raised just a little bit to keep myself, to keep the bike a little steadier, and I had it in the friction zone. I'll do it again. Nice controlled stop with the rear brake only. Okay, now the front brake this time, only. Try to get in front of the camera if I can. Okay. Off the rear brake, the front brake only. That's a very interesting feeling. And to me, it's a whole lot more controlled to use your rear brake to keep your speed under control while you come into a smooth stop. Remember, I'm going to caveat this again. All of this is in the context of a normal, slow, or rather normal, controlled, smooth stop. When I have the opportunity to focus on the comfort of my passenger for one, comfort of myself, making sure my handlebars are straight, etc. This is focused on that smooth stop. This is not talking about an emergency brake. You do not want to focus on necessarily on smooth stop and emergency braking. Try it again here. I'm going to try the front brake again. I'm coming up to a stop. I'm only using the front brake. Let me try that. Pretend I have a passenger on. Okay, I have a passenger on my seat, and I gotta turn around here. Get facing the camera. I have a passenger with me, and now it's just so difficult to make sure it's a slow and controlled stop. Because I don't know if you saw a minute ago, when I put my feet down, as a way of basically putting my feet down forces me to use this front brake. I was wiggling back and forth a little bit, and it jumped a little bit. I mean, that front brake is grabbing. Let's try it again. Come up for a straight approach. Okay, now, wow. I mean, I'm really having to try to feather that front brake, and I don't know if you could tell, the motorcycle wanted to pull back and forth a little bit. And yeah, I have my feet on the ground to stabilize myself, but I was using the front brake so that I could put my feet down before I was even stopped. And that feels odd to me, because now if I am rolling a little bit and the motorcycle falls one way or the other, oh man, I don't even know how to simulate that, because this front brake is not going to help me with the feeling of falling. The throttle will, but I don't really have the control. And I could try that. It seems odd to me. If I'm on the front brake only, not only, focused on the front, well yeah, I'm on the front brake only because I'm trying to use my feet to stabilize the bike while I'm stopping with my passenger, which means I'm doing this. Walking my bike to a stop forces me to completely rely on the front brake, which, as I mentioned before, it's a whole lot of stopping power, maybe too much. I'm coming up to a stop sign, have a passenger, and if I feel myself falling a little bit, just go back into the friction zone. Easy enough. This is back to using rear brake. Now I say easy enough, Granted, this does take practice. Let's just say full disclosure. In order to ride a bike, ride a motorcycle, ride a motor, control a motor properly, there's practice involved. It's really unlike a four-wheeled vehicle. Three-wheeled vehicle as well. I mean, the trike is the same thing. Not same thing. The trike doesn't take as much slow speed practice to get used to the slow speed control. And in order to ride a motorcycle, in order to control it and be in control and be safe, you got to practice it. You got to practice the slow speed stuff. It's pretty much all there is to it. And the more you practice the slow speed with the foot on the rear brake in the slow speed exercises and when you're stopping, the more you become comfortable with it. I recall just the other week I had my brother-in-law in town and he was riding on the back, and I did at times have that wobbly feel just a little bit. What did I do when I had that wobbly feel? Well, I went back into the friction zone just ever so slightly. And once I got it control, I would slowly put my foot down. Now, once I got the control back, and we're talking 1 or 2 miles an hour. I mean, this is very, very slow speed. Once I got the control back and I put my foot down, I would switch to grab the front brake and put this other foot down. There's nothing wrong with that. When you're having a passenger on and you are concerned about dropping the bike, and of course you should be. If you're by yourself and you drop your bike, you can pick it back up. You can pick it back up. With the passenger, it's going to scare them quite badly. You might hurt them too. You don't want to drop the bike when you're riding with a passenger. So put your feet down. It's fine to stabilize yourself. If you need to do that, grab your front. Hold on to your front brake. Switch from your rear brake to your front brake, so you can, if you need to, because you're on a hill. If you're not on a hill, you can just sit there without rolling, I guess. Anyway, hold on to your front brake if you need to. And once you're going to get going again, put your foot back on your rear brake. You put your bike in a position where you're barely holding it up with your left hand, with your left foot. Let go of your let go of your front brake. Give it a little bit of pre-throttle, preload. Put yourself into the friction zone. Really, that's a quick step process, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you have a passenger and you're uncomfortable with having one foot down, only do that when you're about ready to go. So here we go. I started it up. I have my passenger on the back. I'm going to put my foot up, and here we go. We're talking 3 seconds tops. 1001, 1002, done. I'm already going. And really, you should be able to get yourself comfortable and stabilized in order to accelerate within those 2 or 3 seconds. And that is the best way to have stability with your bike. So once again, if I'm going to come up to a stop, I'm going to come around to a signal. I'm coming, even a four-way stop, doesn't matter, some sort of a stop. Coming up to a stop with my passenger, and I feel the wobblies. There we go. And now that stop line, that line I just stopped at, let's say that was where I was supposed to stop. The key is, when you're coming up to a stop with your passenger, approach the stop slowly and controlled. That's really the key. If you're approaching the stop at a quick pace, you might have some trouble with wobbliness because passengers aren't always still. And actually, even more than that, part of the reason you want to give yourself some time to stop, some space to stop, because let's say I get wobbly, I need to correct. There we go, I had space and time to correct. Easy enough. This is all assuming, of course, you're coming to a controlled and comfortable stop. Just to summarize real quickly, there is a time and place to use to put your feet down, both feet down together on the ground, even when you're in the running, when you have a passenger. That's fine. Even when it's a really windy day, if you need to put your feet down, that's fine. Problem is when you are focused on using your front brake to stop at speeds, will, let's say below 5-10 miles an hour, that front brake, yeah, that's a powerful brake to use, and it's easy, very easy to drop your bike when you're using that, or to make the ride very uncomfortable. Why not take the time to practice using that rear brake? Slow, controlled, comfortable stop. Once you stop, it's fine to put both feet down. And again, we're not talking about emergency braking. Emergency braking, you are going to use your front brake. Pretty much all the way. You can, I think there are probably instances where you can switch over to your rear brake if you're good enough. Awesome. But this is not an emergency stopping. We're talking about slow, controlled braking. And until next time.